2 vacant chairs. That's what greeted me when my name echoed across Harvard Yard. No bouquets, no flashing cameras, only 2 printed name cards fluttering in the breeze. My mother and father's absence danced quietly in the air while Miss Texas waved her crown 2,000 meters away. Hours later, a single photo my cousin posted turned our hometown upside down. The picture-perfect family had finally met its truth. Church whispers started, online threads ignited, and small-town tongues burned with gossip. And me? I didn't argue. I didn't chase explanations. I made one decision that rewrote my entire life. You want to know how applause at my graduation became the sound of their reckoning? Then stay, because the next 10 minutes reveal exactly why I never looked back. Where are you watching from? I grew up in Abilene, Texas, a place so small you can't sneeze without the whole town knowing who blessed you. Sundays meant sermons, Wednesdays meant whispers, and every family had a title to uphold. Ours was meant to be the flawless one, or at least that's the illusion my mother polished until it gleamed. Linda Hart, my mother, once wore the Miss Texas crown back in the 1980s, and honestly, I don't think she ever removed it. She simply traded the tiara for a family she could display like trophies on a mantle. To her, beauty wasn't only skin deep. It was sacred scripture. She called it the Hart Legacy, a royal lineage stitched together by sequins and practiced smiles. My father, Robert Hart, owned a modest auto repair shop on the edge of town. He was quiet, steady, and believed silence was the glue that held peace together. He rarely contradicted my mother, and when he did, it always ended with his weary phrase, "Let it be, Liv." As a child, I mistook those words for love. As an adult, I realized they were just surrender disguised as calm. Then there was Savannah, my younger sister by 6 years and the golden light of the Hart household. Mom said her smile could win over any room. Savannah's world was filled with lace dresses, glittering crowns, and posture lessons. I lived behind that curtain, zipping her gowns, holding her heels. I wasn't resentful, at least not in the beginning. I truly believed that if I worked hard enough, maybe Mom would finally see me too. I was the quiet achiever, the one with straight A's, debate medals, and a fascination with law books. Every time I showed Mom another certificate, she'd pat my shoulder and say, "That's nice, honey. But remember, confidence makes you beautiful." It took me years to understand that in her language, beautiful really meant worthy. Our home was a shrine to her past, pageant crowns, framed photos, and Savannah's ribbons covering every wall. My face existed only in reflections, blurred somewhere in the background between their grins. Truth is, I gave up trying long before Harvard. I learned how to build pride quietly and celebrate victories alone. When my Harvard acceptance letter arrived, I thought maybe, finally, I'd earned a place in that perfect portrait. But when the big day came, when the applause rose, and those 2 front-row seats stayed empty, I understood everything. Perfection was never truth. It was just the story my mother sold to the town. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be part of it anymore. Harvard was supposed to be my restart, one place where the Hart legacy didn't exist. In Cambridge, nobody cared who wore the Miss Texas crown. What mattered was what you could prove in class, on paper, or in court. For once, my mind, not my posture, earned attention. Yet even in that freedom, the echo remained. Would she care? Would she even notice? So, a few months before graduation, I did what I promised myself I'd never do again. I tried one last time. I spent 2 weeks crafting the perfect message, brief but sincere. The graduation ceremony will be June 10th at Harvard Yard. It would mean the world if you and Dad could come. I've already arranged your flights and hotel. Love, Vanessa. My finger hovered over send for a full minute before I pressed it. Then came silence. A day passed. Then 2, then 5. Finally, her name appeared on my phone. June 10th is the Miss Texas Finals. Savannah's worked so hard for this. You understand? 4 words, you understand? Burned deeper than any insult. It wasn't a question. It was an order. A reminder of my place, the understanding daughter, forever in the background of her masterpiece. I stared until the message blurred, then set my phone face down. Outside my dorm window, snow fell in slow, soundless spirals. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort, it cauterizes. That night, I went to the library, the one place I'd built myself from scratch. Between the stacks of law journals, I opened my old notebook from Abilene, filled with tiny victories and pep talks to myself. There, in my grandfather Judge Walter Hart's handwriting, was a quote I'd almost forgotten. "You don't need anyone's spotlight to be seen. Just stay whole." I traced the words slowly, and something in me shifted. Not an explosion, but a steady tilt. Maybe I'd never earn her applause, but I could stop begging for it. So, I slipped my graduation invitation inside that journal and whispered to the empty air. "You wanted me to understand, Mom?" "I do." What replaced anger was clarity, and that clarity became the seed of everything that followed. The night before graduation, the world smelled like rain and lilacs. My suitcase sat half-zipped on the bed, black heels, crimson gown, and an empty envelope where family photos should have been. For weeks, I'd pretended not to care, told friends my parents were too busy. Said it with a practiced smile sharp enough to cut through pity. But as midnight neared, the truth finally settled. They weren't coming. And I wasn't surprised. I unlocked my phone one last time. The thread with my mother, short, cold, still ended with "You understand?" It glowed like a scar. Below it were messages from Dad. "Proud of you, kid." No punctuation, no emotion, just his familiar silence disguised as care. For the first time, I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through my gallery. Photos of study nights, debate wins, snowy mornings. Then came the one I'd taken weeks earlier, 2 empty chairs beneath the Harvard banner. I stared at it until a thought formed, gentle but unshakable. If they won't sit there, I will. That's when I began to write. Not a plea, not a message, but a reckoning. Every word I'd ever swallowed spilled out. Years of invisibility, of quiet endurance. Yet it wasn't bitter. It was deliberate, calm, like closing a door softly and locking it for good. When I finished, I folded the speech neatly and slid it into the same envelope that once held their invitations. The one that once said, "Please come now," carried the story of what happens when you don't. I packed my grandfather's journal, his words nestled inside, "Stay whole." That was all I needed. Before switching off the light, I did one final thing. I opened my contacts, found Mom, then Dad, and pressed delete. No drama, no tears, just reclamation. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't make noise, but makes room. Rain started outside, tapping lightly against the glass. I lay down, listening, realizing it was no longer a storm. It had become a purification. By morning, I knew precisely for whom I was walking. Not for the 2 vacant chairs in the front row, but for the girl who had finally stopped waiting to be noticed. On graduation morning, Harvard Yard appeared like a postcard, sunlight spilling over brick buildings and flags swaying gently in the June breeze. The air carried the scent of old books and blooming magnolia, a fragrance that felt both like an ending and a beginning. I dressed slowly, the crimson gown crisp against the white shirt beneath. Every sound seemed magnified, the rustle of fabric, the chatter of classmates, the brass band tuning somewhere far off. Everyone had someone waiting for them. Everyone except me. As we formed the line to march, a girl behind whispered, "Your parents must be proud." I smiled, responding softly, "Perhaps, in their own way." When the ceremony began, applause rolled through the crowd like ocean waves. Names were read one by one, each met with a new cheer. Families shouted, waved, cried. Then it was mine. Vanessa Hart, Juris Doctor, Harvard Law School. For a heartbeat, silence followed. Then a few polite claps arose. My friends, my professor, and a single pair of hands I recognized instantly. I looked up. In the 3rd row, Grandfather Walter stood tall in his gray suit, morning sunlight catching the silver in his hair. Beside him sat Ethan, the quiet med student who had supported me through late nights of study and self-doubt. Their eyes met mine, both smiling, steady, and proud enough to fill the empty seats around them. I walked across the stage, received my diploma, and faced the audience. 2 chairs in the front row remained untouched, name cards pinned neatly, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. A light breeze lifted the edges, making them flutter like something finally released. That was my closure. Not revenge, not triumph, just peace. Yet fate had its irony. That afternoon, sitting with Walter and Ethan by the Charles River, my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Emma in Abilene. She had posted a photo on Instagram. Me on stage, sunlight on my face, diploma in hand, crimson robe glowing against the blue sky. The caption read, "She did it alone." I stared at the photo, feeling a subtle shift inside. Not pride, but something quieter, a sense of truth settling into place. By evening, the post spread like wildfire. Abilene was a small town. Gossip traveled faster than the weather. On the same day, June 10th, another event streamed live, the Miss Texas Finals starring Savannah Hart. 2,000 meters apart, 2 spotlights burned simultaneously, one fueled by applause, the other by silence. While Savannah smiled under glittering stage lights, I stood with my grandfather by the Charles River taking photos. I didn't yet know that the world was watching both of us. By nightfall, messages flooded in. Old classmates, former neighbors, even church members who hadn't spoken in years. "Is it true your parents didn't come?" "Linda was at the pageant." "Everyone's talking, Vanessa." I didn't reply. I scrolled, watching the story unfold. Someone had posted a collage. Left, Savannah crowned, tiara glittering, mom, Linda crying as she hugged her. Right, me at Harvard, sunlight on my face, 2 empty chairs behind me. The caption read, 2 daughters, 2 stages, 1 choice. Brutal, but true. Within hours, local news picked it up. Former Miss Texas skips daughter's Harvard graduation for beauty pageant. Comments poured in, half outraged, half shocked. Imagine missing Harvard for a tiara. She raised 1 daughter to be noticed, another to be ignored. Vanessa didn't need the crown. She became it. By midnight, the town divided, believers and deniers. Church forms buzzed. Old friends whispered. The Hart family, once elegant, now scandalized. When my phone rang that night, I knew. Mom. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came sharp, trembling. "What did you do, Vanessa?" "Everyone's calling me a terrible mother. You humiliated this family." I paused, letting her words echo. Ethan watched calmly across the table. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I didn't humiliate you. You simply didn't see what truth looks like under the light." She gasped. "You think you're better than us now with your fancy degree?" "No," I replied, "just freer." Then I hung up. She called 5 more times. I didn't answer. By morning, the fallout had begun. Emma reported church ladies whispering, "Did you hear?" She missed Harvard for a crown. Former pageant friends distanced themselves. Savannah's sponsorship offers paused. My father kept his head down at the garage, refusing comment. For the first time, the applause-driven family became observers of their own reflection. That evening, Ethan arrived with 2 coffees. We sat by the window, scrolling through chaos. "Do you feel sorry for them?" he asked quietly. I watched rain smear city lights across the glass. "No," I said, "but I'm no longer angry either." Life, in its strange, poetic way, mirrored them back to themselves. That night, I walked alone. The Charles River rippled with reflections. Gold, white, crimson. I stopped on the bridge, inhaling Boston's cold air. Years of believing closure required apology or confrontation taught me otherwise. It came from knowing I didn't need any of that. Harvard Yard's applause was mine. The following silence, theirs. No need to trade one for the other. A week later, a text appeared from an unknown number. "I'm in Boston. Can we meet, Dad?" I stared, studying it like a healed yet still sensitive wound. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another, remembering the quiet man with grease-stained hands who once left folded bills on my desk, could not. We met at a small cafe near Harvard Square. Fog enveloped the city, soft and gray. He looked older. His voice cracked. I was wrong, Vanessa. I thought keeping peace meant keeping family together, but I let you fight alone. I said nothing. The truth didn't need me. He reached across, fingers trembling. I don't expect forgiveness. Just thank you for becoming the person I couldn't be. I nodded. That was enough. Later, Mom called. I almost ignored it. Curiosity prevailed. Her voice brittle. They're saying awful things. I only wanted Savannah to have opportunities I never had. You understand, don't you? Same words, same echo. But this time they sounded small, tired, powerless. I do understand, I said quietly. You wanted applause. I wanted a mother, she cried. I didn't. When the call ended, no victory, just release, the kind that comes when you stop expecting someone to change. That night, I visited Grandfather Walter. He listened, hand steady over mine. You don't need forgiveness to be free, he said. Just stop needing their approval. For the first time, I understood true freedom. Not roaring, but breathing. The world had delivered justice. I only had to live it. A year later, the chairs were no longer empty. Not in Harvard Yard, but on my Cambridge balcony. One for me, one for Ethan. We sat, tea in hand, watching the sun melt into the Charles River. The city hummed gently below, alive but patient, learning to breathe at my pace. Sometimes I thought of Texas, the stage lights, sequins, crowns, and silence. The memories no longer hurt. They existed as chapters I had already written. Closure, I realized, comes from peace, quietly built, seat by seat, until emptiness no longer matters. When the wind shifts, I still hear Grandfather Walter's words, "Stay whole, Vanessa." I smile. I did. Perhaps you've had your own empty chair moments, when loved ones didn't appear. If so, know this, you are no longer alone.